Yes, guys, welcome back to Chasing Green Arrows. We are back with Big Man's team selection ahead of Game Week 25, which feels like it's taken forever to come around. We're there on Friday night, but as we record this, we've still got a game of Game Week 24 to come. Big Man, how are you and how are you feeling about Liverpool versus Everton?
Hello, Johnny. Hello, welcome to all the listeners and viewers. It feels like an eternity. You're absolutely right. Uh, I actually have no idea how many points I'm on. I've completely lost track of the game week. All I remember is that I stopped really caring after Chris Wood scored a hat trick and I didn't own him. That has stayed long in the memory. But apart from that, I've had an okay week. It was like most people who didn't own Wood. It wasn't a great week. It wasn't a bad week either. So I'm hoping that I can end up on the right side of variance tonight. In terms of the game week coming up, I got on the right side of variance in terms of the result because I had loaded up on Aston Villa and Liverpool. I had slot, but unfortunately, I got Consign last week and he limped off, and that was a body blow. So while I was sitting comfortably with my team plans earlier when we recorded on Friday, I've now got a bit of thinking to do.
Yeah, and because you're not on free hit 29, you'll be looking at players like Konza thinking if they're not doubling and they're not playing in the blank in 29, is he an immediate sell? Maybe he is. So that'll be interesting for you because you'll be selling Konza in the next couple of weeks anyway. You're not going to start him in the next few weeks because he's got poor fixtures, even if he is fit. So yeah, that'll be interesting. I look forward to seeing your team and discussing that. Obviously, we haven't got an injury update on Ollie Watkins, have we? When we last recorded at the end of last week, we had Emery's press conference pre-FA Cup, which was he's not ready for the FA Cup, but he'll be in training next week and he should be available. I don't think we've seen anything from Villa yet, have we? We haven't seen or heard anything. And I guess we won't till Emery's press conference on Thursday, Friday, but we may have by now had some training ground pictures. We've not had that even. So we're still waiting on Ollie Watkins. I mean, what's your hunch there? I think he'll probably be fine and start, but what are you thinking there?
It's tough to say without any training ground pictures or such because it's Wednesday. It's a Friday deadline. We haven't really heard anything. I would assume he trains and starts, but it's only an assumption based on very flimsy ground.
Yeah.
I can't really say much. I am a fan of the Isak to Watkins move if Watkins is fit and if we know that he's starting, but it depends on how much he's trained. I mean, if he's training on the last day, a day before the game, that might put me off. I mean, it remains to be seen. I need some more clarity.
We do have a little bit of a report on Trent, who obviously plays tonight. He's been training and he should feature, but we don't know if he'll start. I mean, it was interesting that Bradley was rested in the FA Cup, so he didn't travel to Plymouth. Players like Gakpo and Salah were rested, but also Bradley, because it's like, okay, we might need a right back on Wednesday night and we don't want to risk you. So what do you make of Trent? And do you reckon he starts? And then obviously we've got to touch on Mykolenko as well. There's a few injuries going into tonight's game.
Personally, I'm not too worried about Trent because the majority of my competitors who are the most engaged managers, they own him anyway. I'm more concerned about the fact whether he's going to be fine for next week. Yeah. Because, as someone with Konza, Mykolenko even, who didn't feature in the cup, he's a bit of an injured out himself. And as someone with Colville, I don't know whether he's going to start the next game or not. I need Trent to be fit for that the double game week. Because my defense is, suddenly short on numbers. So that's more important for me. But I think he'll be fine for the weekend at least, even if he's not fine for tonight.
Yeah, interesting. Your team's going to be full of flags by the sounds of it. We'll get to the big man's team in just a minute, guys, so stay tuned for that. Since we last spoke, big man, we've also had a little bit more clarity on the FA Cup. We've had some teams go out. We know now that in game week 34, for example, it will be a double game week, but 34 will be a blank game week. And we know a couple of games that will go ahead in that week because then they're already knocked out the FA Cup. Having teams like Chelsea knocked out the FA Cup is quite good for us in a way. Are you thinking chip strategy wise? It's still very much a don't free hit in 29, probably wildcard in 30, 31. Probably bench boost in 33. and then probably look to use your other chip, your free hit, either in 36 as a double or 34 as a blank. I mean, it looks like the big double will be 33, not 36. It is looking that way in terms of the predictors predicting.
Yeah, I think chip strategy is fairly dependent on one specific team. But for my team, I'm thinking of wildcarding either in 30 or 31. As mentioned earlier in the previous episode as well, I don't necessarily feel as if my team requires a free hit in 29 because I only own Isak from Newcastle, Eze from Palace. I know I own a few Liverpool, but I do have like 5 free transfers between now and Game Week 29 to get rid of the players I want. And I think that is probably going to be sufficient unless my team gets decimated, which is possible. I mean, I'm not ruling it out because of the flags in my team. Suddenly, I'm not in as good a position as I was last week. But currently, yes, I'm leaning towards not using it and using it later in let's say game week 34, which is likely to be the big blank, which will have 3 to 4 blanks possibly. And then I guess in the double in game week 36, I might look at using my triple captaincy. Bench boost will be 33 because of the biggest double. I think that sort of picks itself. I don't have much choice.
And it's close to a wild card, which always helps with bench boost. You do your wild card and bench boost ideally quite close together, and then you got 15 playing twice, for example. You don't have the flags.
Exactly.
Mate, I've got 8 players that play in game week 29. 8, and I've got Rico Lewis. So I've got that don't play in 29 plus Rico Lewis. So I've got potentially 9 men not playing. I've also got 2 transfers to use on 2 assistant managers in the next 2 weeks, or next 2 game weeks. And I'm buying an Ollie Watkins this week, who again I know doesn't play in 29. I want to free hit in 29. My problem is I don't think the 29 fixtures at the minute are good enough. Like, we need to see something from Man United and Man City before that to go, yeah, I actually really want to stack up on, Man United got a good fixture, Man City got off a good fixture. Do we trust them enough? So I am tempted, if I do that, because I free hit in 29, I'd then be rolling transfers. So I could hopefully in 33 still get a very good bench boost team out. Because I'd get to 33 with loads of 5 free transfers. That's the dream. And I'd have lots of players already on a double. I'd buy some more on a double. I can then bench boost in 33. I could then wild card potentially in 34 or even 35 or even 36, but probably wildcard in 34 because it's a blank. Make sure on my bench I've got players that I know double in 36 so I can cover blank and double and hope it's not a big double in 36 and the big double comes in 33. It's a risky play because we don't know what's going to happen in 33, 4, 5, and 6. Like, that window, because of the FA Cup, is so uncertain. So if
we'll only know after the 30 deadline.
After the 30 deadline. But exactly. I need to know before the 30 deadline because I need to know if I'm free hitting in 29 or not. So it's really risky for me because for my team, it makes sense to free hit in 29 and to use the wild card later. And I think in 33, even without a wild card, I think my bench boost team in 33 will look similar to yours in 33 without a wild card because we're free transfers and I own Palace and Newcastle and I'm already on triple Liverpool and blah, blah, blah. So I think I could get there, but then I don't quite know how I navigate a blank and a big double in 34 and 6 with just a wild card. Don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it is a strategy which is fraught with risk because of the reasons you just mentioned. But having said that, when we were recording 2 weeks ago, Game Week 34 was looking a whole lot more difficult to navigate without the free hit. Yeah. But given how results have sort of panned out, it might be more easier as compared to what we knew earlier.
Yeah, true. True. The problem is the 34 blankers will probably be doubling in 36 or in 33. I just hope most 34 blankers have doubled in 33. If they happen to double in 36, then it's a problem for me because I won't have a team set for both 34 and 36. And I'd only have a wild card. So I therefore would have to wild card between 34 and 36. But I would, what do you make of that? What do you make of that strategy and the free hit in 29 for a team like me that I can probably get to 8, 9 players, but I certainly can't get to 11 in 29. I'll probably get to 8 with freeze.
I think it's difficult for you because you don't exactly have too many free transfers in hand. Let's say hypothetically, if you decide not to free hit in 29, I mean, how many hits will you have to take to get there? You just mentioned you'll be missing like 9 players, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah,
in 29, or at
yeah,
least eight.
eight plus Rico
And you'll
Lewis.
have to use exactly. I assume you have only one or two free transfers right now, which you have to use on the free on the assistant managers as well.
Yeah,
So that leaves you with what, three transfers between 26 and
yeah,
29, maximum four,
yeah,
right? Even if you use your four transfers, assuming nothing else happens, because shit happens. That
yeah,
always happens,
yeah.
right? Uh, I think it's a very optimistic thought to think that you might not. You can sort of navigate the game week 29 week without the free hit. I think you'll probably be forced into using it unless you decide that you have to take a lot of hits. I guess your hand is forced.
I also like the fact I can keep Newcastle and Liverpool players. Like I think by free hitting in 29, like Newcastle have got great fixtures off the back of the free hit in 29. Like I won't need to wildcard because I already have two Newcastle in place. I think Liverpool players are a fine hold. Yet some are going to be offloading their Liverpool and Newcastle players because they're not free hitting in 29. So it gives me a little advantage in the game weeks around it. But yeah, the disadvantage comes in 34, 5, 6 when I'm trying to navigate what could be a big blank and big double. We just don't quite know. I think 33 is not a problem for me because by free hitting, by nature of doing that, I'm going to be saving free transfers. So it's really interesting. I mean, what do you make of, I obviously wouldn't be wildcarding in 30-31. How do you see that wildcard going in 30-31? Because I reckon I can get close to that team, but it depends on people's directions. Like, can I keep up with the field if they're all going Haaland and big on City? Maybe not. But do you see yourself going there? Like, what's your plan from 30 onwards, like in terms of big hitters and distribution of funds and stuff? Have you looked that far ahead and thought this is what a wildcard team could look like?
I think it depends on when I decide to wildcard actually, because it could be 30, could be 31. I haven't exactly locked in a week just yet. So, for example, if I'm not free hitting in 29, I will very likely get Haaland in just for the captaincy reasons in 29 when City are playing at home to Brighton, and I'd want Haaland there. And then City are playing home to Leicester in 30. So in that case, if I decide to dead end in 30, in 31, I might not require as much City coverage as I do in 30. But if I, let's say, wildcard in 30, my team might look completely different. Then again, we'll discuss Bournemouth mids. Bournemouth are another team. Bournemouth are playing Ipswich at home in game week 30. So if I decide to, get a Bournemouth mid right now or double up on them, which I'm planning to, I might not require a wildcard in 30. So again, a lot of these things are dependent on, how my team looks closer to 29. And right now, it's really difficult to sort of say as to which week I'm sort of leaning towards to wildcard. It could be 30, could be 31. And then what my team looks like at that point depends on the time of the wildcard.
Yeah, nice. Okay, good stuff. I really enjoyed that. That was our chip strategy chat, guys. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comments. But you can also hit the like button and subscribe if you want to support the video or the channel in any way, shape or form. We really appreciate you hitting those buttons. Big man, I guess we should get to your team fairly early and have a discussion about it specifically. I mean, before we do, I guess, is there any other topics we should cover? We've obviously discussed chip strategy, which is central to everyone's conversation. The other big themes of the week, but we've already discussed them on other shows, is the Bournemouth mids, other Aston Villa attackers that aren't called Ollie Watkins, and Liverpool as a trio. But again, most of us are committed with Liverpool already, so it doesn't feel like a huge discussion point. I mean, Villa are an interesting topic, and I guess we should give some airtime to Ollie Watkins. Let's assume he's fit, and we bring him in this week. How long do we see ourselves holding him? Because he obviously doesn't play in 29, and the fixtures aren't great.
Yes, I think this is actually a very good point that you raised, Johnny, because when we had our discussion earlier on Friday, I was very high on the transfer. I still like the transfer, but one of the reasons why I was high on the transfer was because I liked the exit route into Havertz and Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
But Jackson has sort of sustained a knock. We don't exactly know about his fitness. Havertz is apparently out for the season. So there aren't too many exit points from Watkins, which is something which is concerning.
Looks like
me.
Jackson should be fit for Friday. I've read something on some Chelsea
even
site.
If he's fit. Even if he's fit, with these niggling concerns, do you want to risk him for a midweek fixture? I know the fixture is really appealing, but because that fixture is so easy on paper, Maresca has in the past rotated him in exactly these kind of
Leicester and
fixtures.
Southampton in 27 and 28, and it's like you don't know you're getting both those games.
Exactly. So
You are
is
from
it
Palmer.
worth risking it? Exactly. So that's something which has now, caused a bit of doubt in my head. I'm not exactly certain. And then again, there are lingering doubts over Watkins' fitness himself. So yeah, I'll assess how things are close to the deadline. And if I can figure out, let's say, a concrete route out from Watkins, then I think I'll probably go there. But yeah, it remains to be seen.
Yeah.
What is your plan?
Strategy. Well, so again, I kind of want to. That's why I pushed you on sort of chip strategy, because I would like to know this week for sure if I'm free hitting in 29 or not. I think it's quite important with regards to transfers every week, right? As we're building to 29. And if I'm free hitting in 29, I can kind of buy Ollie Watkins guilt free this week. Because at the moment, I'm buying Watkins on a 4-point hit, which doesn't sit massively well with me. But I'm in it just for that Ipswich fixture. I should caveat all of this with I'm only buying him if I see training ground pictures or a good Unai Emery press conference quote, which I think we'll get. Emery's one of the good guys. He usually tells us. But if I do that, and then I get to 29 and decide I don't want a free hit, it's another transfer I've made for a player blanking in 29. And as you're right, I need an exit strategy. Who am I moving him on to?
But hey, I have a question right here. If you get Watkins this week and you're using your free transfers and getting assistant managers, is there a world where you will decide not to free it in 29? I don't see a reason not to, given your team.
It's the
As in, why would you?
I would, because I'd be worried about missing out on how I navigate that 34 and that 34 blank 36 double with only wildcard in hand. Because if I'd definitely be delaying the wildcard. There's no way I'll wildcard in 30, 31, 32. Like I may have to wildcard in 32 to bench boost 33, but I think I could get there without it.
Yes, my question will be that worry still exists right now, right? That will exist after your transfer as well. So you're absolutely right when you say that you need to decide when to free hit before making that transfer.
Yeah.
Because that transfer will essentially lock you into it, I would say.
I think it probably does. Yeah.
Exactly. So you need to decide that before it.
Yeah. And this week, I'm on a -4. I've got 2 free transfers. One of them is Emery. Of course, it's going to be for all Moyes owners. The second one, I'm definitely buying a Bournemouth mid. I'm not going another week without a Bournemouth midfielder. So I've got Bruno Fernandes. I'm very keen to offload him. I go to Dango. And then I've got João Pedro. Again, I'm keen to offload João Pedro to Watkins. So it works for me in a -4 because I'm shifting my funds from midfield to attack in those 3 or 2 transfers by selling Bruno and effectively getting Watkins. But yeah, you're right. That probably then nails me to free hit 29. The problem with 29 is I just don't love the fixtures for a free hit. But sometimes if it works for your team, it works for your team. And that is where I am. Yeah, where I'm more likely to go than not. We'll do a poll. Are you likely to free hit in 29? Yes or no? I expect only 25% will be free hitting in 29. I think a lot can navigate it without. But yeah, again, who knows? Watkins might be a doubt going into the game week. We don't hear anything on Emery. And I'll probably just make the Bournemouth mid move. And then I keep João Pedro, don't take the hit. And then next week, I'm looking at covering it with free transfers.
Let's discuss 2 of the elephants in the room, Bruno Fernandes and João Pedro, because you've brought them up.
Yeah, they're both players you and I, we've had a lot, haven't we?
I've had a love affair with both of them, specifically Bruno Fernandes in particular this season. So I'm very keen to discuss. I actually want to ask you firstly, who is your 8th attacker, out of interest?
My 8th attacker is Enzo.
Exactly right. So
still got Enzo writing on my bench.
Exactly. So that makes João Pedro, Bruno, all these guys more of a priority to address because you don't exactly have the luxury to bench them either, and that's why I was asking, right? Because Enzo has been useless as well. João Pedro didn't play in the cup. He came on as a sub. Rutter played well, impressed.
Yeah.
Do you think he starts?
João Pedro got hooked at half-time against Forest in that weird-looking system of like a 4-5-1 where he played João Pedro and Rutter as like dual number 8s in a 3-man midfield. It was very strange. But then to not start in the FA Cup, which was a full-strength 11, like it wasn't like they rotated heavily in the Cup. They went all out to beat Chelsea, and they did. I think João Pedro could be benched this weekend, mate. Or on Friday night. I fancy Brighton to look very similar against Chelsea as to the team that beat them, which would mean João Pedro benched.
His minutes are certainly up in the air, and he's concerning me as well. So I'm not exactly sure as to whether I'd start him.
Mm.
Well, what I'd say is he has been their best attacker this season. But yes, given the fact that Brighton looked better against Chelsea and they're playing the same opposition again, I doubt that they would go away from the same system.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see where João Pedro starts as well, but currently I'd lean towards probably him getting benched again.
Yeah.
And that's where the trouble lies. Because there aren't too many.
It was a tell for me. Like, that was a big one to miss out. If you're Brighton, you've got that mid-table mediocrity about you, right? You're not going up, you're not going down, you're not getting Europe, you're not going down. Slim chance of Europe. But winning a cup for Hurst in his first season as a priority, and to drop João Pedro.
The team was strong.
The
team was strong as well. It was a relatively strong team as well, right? It wasn't as if all the guys
scored a good goal.
I think Rutter will start. I have a feeling that João Pedro might start ahead of Welbeck. Do you see a world where that happens?
He loves Welbeck, Hörsler. He really loves Welbeck, to the point where he let Evan Ferguson go out on loan. Didn't even give Evan Ferguson any minutes. He loves Welbeck. So I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if we see João Pedro number 9. He's also, I'm sure, spoken about how number 9 isn't João Pedro's best position, and how when Welbeck was injured, he sort of was covering there. So yeah, I don't know, man. Don't know. It's a tough one. I'm happy selling him. I mean, I would, even if I don't buy Ollie Watkins, I still want to sell João Pedro, but I could, because there isn't an obvious forward to buy, I could very easily just turn my 8th attacker Enzo to someone better and have João Pedro as my 8th attacker for a bit. I don't mind that. And then when he gets back in the 11, he's back in my team. But I could go Enzo to a Bournemouth mid and Bruno to a Bournemouth mid. I could buy 2 Bournemouth mids this week if I didn't buy Ollie Watkins. And then I'm upgrading my 8th attacker in Enzo. And again, that means free hit 29 is.
I think if Watkins isn't fit, that's the move for you.
Yeah, no, it is. I think I'll be taking a 4-point hit regardless. But yeah, we need to know if Watkins is fit. Do you reckon Emery will tell us? It's a shame it's a Friday deadline, but I'm pretty sure he will.
I think he will, yes, and I think we'll probably get some training photos as well. I see why you're keen on taking a hit. I haven't taken a hit all season. I'm very hit averse, but it's probably because you feel as if João Pedro's not going to start and might as well get a player who's starting, even if it's for a hit instead of him. It's basically
João Pedro versus a Bournemouth mid. There's no contest this week, is there? Yeah,
especially if you don't think that he's going to start, then of course there isn't.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk Bruno then, because you've said the elephants in the room. Where are you at with Bruno?
Yeah, I haven't really liked what I've seen of him in recent times. He's playing too deep. He's just playing too deep. He's not been an influence at all. And if he continues playing in that role, it's difficult to see him hauling in a lot of weeks. I have mentioned in the past that United have Ipswich in game week 27 and Leicester in blank game week 29. So that's actually a really good stretch for Bruno. But you need him playing closer to goal, and that is something that is bothering me at this point now.
Yeah. Like, I bought him in. The famous Gianni sold Phil Foden was because I watched Bruno against Arsenal in, was it the FA Cup, where he played front 3 and scored that awesome hit, sort of outside of the boot half volley, was it? And I was like, he's definitely playing front 3 now. And I bought him in for, what was it, Southampton at home or something, and he played deep and captained him, and it was a nightmare. But since then, he has played central too. He's had a few sort of 20 minutes where second half he's gone and played front 3, but it's been so poor. And United don't score goals anyway.
At the cost of repeating myself again, I do think at that time the transfer made sense.
Yeah,
because when you look at how Amorim has used Bruno this season, mostly in the easier games he tends to play him in the front 3, and in the difficult games actually he plays him as a defensive midfielder. But that trend has actually not continued in recent times.
Yeah.
When you look at the recent fixtures, even in the FA Cup against Leicester, that didn't exactly happen for the majority of the game. So I can see your concerns, and I can see why you're looking to sell him. Bournemouth mids are obviously great value. I personally don't think, knowing myself, I would have sold Bruno if I owned, but I can see why you're doing it. Yeah. And I won't exactly put you off it, because it's not exactly a It's exactly. It's it requires an immense level of patience, which I realize a lot of people don't have.
Yeah, I mean he's got Spurs up next, then it's Everton, and Spurs are improved, and Everton like that's still Spurs of course, but I don't fancy United to score many at Spurs at all, and you think he'll be deep. Everton away is going to be a tough visit. He then does have Ipswich at home, but again, and he's got Leicester away in 29. But again, if I do free hit 29, probably bring Bruno back in for that 1 week. So let's see. I certainly don't feel like I'm missing out by selling him, and a Bournemouth mid is top of my wish list. I'm very happy having 2 Bournemouth mids. And yeah, Bruno can go and Enzo can go. And look, maybe next week, let's see what happens. But selling Rodgers to a Bournemouth mid can also happen. I think Rodgers is a great pick this week. And I think if you're shopping for an Aston Villa attacker, Rodgers is still a good punt. But again, just think of your amount of transfers you want to use, because you could go straight to Bournemouth mid this week and have cover in 29, or go Rodgers because you like the double game week and not have 29 coverage. Rodgers will probably be a sell. He's also on 8 yellow cards. He's picked up yellow cards in his last 3 games. When he gets
Johnny, do you think
it's a too much ban if it's before your 32nd game?
Okay, so let's address this question straight away while we're on Rodgers. A lot of people don't have Rodgers. A lot of people don't have a Bournemouth mate. Which player would you get? I think I'm leaning towards a Bournemouth mate because Rodgers will be a transfer in and out, and because one of those games is against Liverpool. If
you're free hitting in 29, then you can afford to maybe punt on a Rodgers. But if you're not, it's got to be a Bournemouth mid.
I agree.
That second fixture is effectively 29. And Bournemouth have a good... Who did Bournemouth play in 29?
Bournemouth have a good fixture.
It's Brentford at home.
Brentford. It's Brentford. Yeah. It's Brentford at home and then Ipswich in 30 at home.
Yeah. So effectively, you get Rodgers for Ipswich and Liverpool, or you get a Bournemouth midfielder for Southampton and Brentford. It's not a contest, is it?
And you save yourself a transfer if you're free.
And you save yourself a transfer. And not free, in 30, you get an even better fixture for Leicester for your Bournemouth mid. So yeah, which may then allow you to wildcard in 31, which could be a way stronger position, wildcarding in 31 than wildcarding in 30. So yeah, the problem is with the Bournemouth mids. I just wrote an article on this. It's not been published yet. I've been writing an article on it this morning, and it's deciding which Bournemouth mid to go for. Is pretty going to be down to... They're all good for different reasons, right? They're all very good players to buy. In a large sample size of 5 to 10 game weeks, they might get similar returns, and they're all going to get returns. Calling who gets returns in any given week is going to just come down to pure luck. Like, I don't think we look at a game and go, that's a Semenyo game or that's a Dango game. I just think we have to commit to a Bournemouth player, stick with that player for 5, 6, 7 games, and hope that they're the ones that get lucky 2 or 3 of those games. Because all 3 of them are very good options. The team produce chances, the team scores goals, but calling who's... All we know is Semenyo will take the most shots, but low XG shots. Dango probably will get the biggest chances, and Kluivert takes up amazing positions and is full of confidence. Like, there is very little to split the 3 of them, and you've just got to get lucky in any given week.
I think I completely agree. And I would even say that when we're discussing Bournemouth mids versus Rodgers, I think you also need to look at that run from game week 26 to 28. Villa's fixtures aren't exactly great in that spell either. Bournemouths are much better. So yeah. I think that settles it. Coming to the comparison between the Bournemouth mids themselves, I think that's a tricky call. I'm personally leaning towards, in fact, to rank the 3 of them, Dango, Semenyo, Kluivert in that order. When you look at the underlying data, Dango's played closest to goal. He has the most. When you look at the previous 4 fixtures when he's been playing as a striker, he's had the most XG out of the 3. So I would expect him to get the highest quality chances, and he's the cheapest of them all as well. So I would probably go towards him. Then I'd go Semenyo for the minute security, and then Kluivert, because Kluivert's numbers aren't as good as the other 2, and he tends to get subbed a bit early. I don't think Kluivert is fine as well because he's a penalty taker, and as mentioned in the previous show, I love penalty takers. But the fact that he gets subbed, 65, 70 minutes every game is a bit off-putting for me personally, especially when the other 2 are regularly getting 90.
Yeah, I mean, mate, Kluivert's had 6 penalties this year, and he scored them all. I remember Bournemouth a year or 2 ago. They went like a whole season without getting a single penalty. It's amazing that he's had 6. But you take away the pens, and look, the pens do exist, and he is on them, and they do win them. But you take away the pens, and actually Kluivert's data isn't as good as you'd expect. But yeah, fair. Like, he's the most expensive. But that was a good ranking there. I quite like that. I think for value, just because of the money, I'd go Dango number 1 as well. Because you have to think, Dango costs almost 20% less than Kluivert. That's significant. That has to be significant. Okay, guys, we'll do a poll. Are you buying or will you own a Bournemouth midfielder in game week 25? I expect you will. By the way, 73% of you are not free hitting in 29. So only about a quarter will free hit in 29. Mate, should we see your team?
Johnny, before we come to the team, there's another thing I'd like to discuss. We've discussed Villa mids, and we've basically said that Bournemouth mids are better. I want to talk Villa players in general because, I don't think there's a lot of point discussing Liverpool players because a lot of people have, either double Liverpool plus slot or triple Liverpool players anyway. So let's discuss Villa. Do you think Villa players are worth buying? If yes, which ones? If not, why not? I mean, that's my question primarily.
Attackers are because it's Ipswich. It's just that one game against Ipswich which comes with a high ceiling. But Villa are...
Be specific. Which attackers? Which attackers? Are you referring to Watkins?
Watkins, if fit, is a great buy.
That's it, right?
But Rodgers is also a good buy, but it depends on that free hit 29 option, doesn't it? If you go Bournemouth mid straight away or not. So you've got to assume we're saying Rodgers isn't the best buy because most are not free hitting in 29. Therefore, a Bournemouth midfielder is a better buy than Rodgers. Rashford and Asensio both played 24 minutes. If we knew one of them was starting versus Ipswich, it's a fine punt. Rashford in particular, because Rashford could even have penalties. Watkins missed his last pen. And he's got a 50% conversion rate.
Yeah, but their minutes are way too up in the air for me.
He's gonna. Well, I reckon they could get one of them will get 60. Don't know who. Asensio's probably got the better fitness in terms of match fitness, but then Rashford's got the experience of Premier League.
And defenders, and defense. I guess Martinez is fine, but I doubt a lot of people have the luxury to buy him or the free transfers to buy him. And even then, I mean, Villa's defense is now decimated, especially with Konza out injured. There's no Pau Torres as well. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure about swapping a Villa defender to another Villa defender. So in my position, I have Konza. I'm not exactly sure where to go with him.
Yeah.
Hello, Emery. Thank you for the super chat. Would you guys sell Bruno and Gordon for Clive and Mbomo for Mainz for already have Semenyo, by the way?
Yeah.
Johnny? What are your thoughts?
I'd definitely make the move without a hit. Like, if you had 2 free transfers, I like them both. I don't know if I love the idea of selling Gordon on a hit. I'm surprised a lot are open to selling Newcastle attackers. Man City is a really good fixture. Like, let's not pretend Man City are even a top half defensive team at the moment. They are poor. And Gordon could have fun against them. But yeah, in general, I like those moves.
I think I'd probably do Gordon to Mbomo or Dango for free, and I just don't think I'd take the hit personally.
Okay. Mate, what do you make of that? Well, let's talk your team then, because I want to ask you about Isak. Isak to Watkins is a move, which a lot were considering a week ago. Maybe you've called on that a little bit, but just want to get your take on Isak in general. Do you see yourself to get to Haaland in 29, selling Isak at some point, right? You're probably going to have to sell him in that spot, if not this week, in 27-8.
Correct.
Or going to 9.
Correct.
Which is why you're open to move now, because it gets you Watkins for the Ipswich game.
Yeah, it gets me the doubler. And I actually got Isak in quite late. I'm not sure when you got him in Johnny. I think it was before me. I was very late.
I was late as well. I think we were a similar week. Neither of us have got a huge amount of value. I was maybe a week before you, but yeah.
So I can sort of afford to move him on a bit earlier. I'm in no rush to sell him as such, but if Watkins is fit, I think I will. I'm just a sucker for doublers, and I think I'll probably have a hard time resisting that transfer.
Yeah.
But yeah, if Watkins is, let's say if he's a doubt, then I'm happy keeping Isak and just ignoring, most of the other doublers.
If you don't buy Watkins, you reckon you keep Isak all the way up to 29 and then sell him? Like, it's Forest and Liverpool after City, I think.
I think so, because as mentioned earlier, I was looking at Havertz and Jackson in that spot, right? And then, if they aren't realistic options, I might as well keep Isak, because the fixtures from Isak aren't exactly great. And I do think this was an opportunity. Watkins is fit. I think I sort of look at it as an opportunity to gain some points in the field. I know Isak he's an elite striker and he'll probably get some goals in this run, but I would rather chance it with a doubler Just given my game style, that's just how I play. But yeah, I mean, it depends on whether that opportunity presents itself. I don't exactly want to force a transfer for the sake of forcing it.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. By the way, if I go Watkins, a move to Jackson for 27 and 28 is a possibility for me, but it is that midweek game in 27. It is a midweek deadline in 27, and Chelsea do play on the Tuesday night. I don't think we'll get a league. The deadline will be 6 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Chelsea play at 8:15. Chelsea aren't a team we get a huge amount of leaks for, but you never know. If we heard he was starting, I'd be tempted. All right, let's see your team then, big man. Let's see how you're shaping up, because you've got transfers in the bank, you've got decisions to make, you've got a fair few flags.
Yeah, my team was looking in better shape without the flags. I mean, Colville has suddenly emerged as a bit of an issue. Konza is an injury doubt. Trent, I hope, will be fine for the weekend. Eze again wasn't in the squad as well. Eze is a problem potentially, right? So there are issues to address. Thankfully I have 2 free transfers to deal with it, so it's nothing which is exactly out of hand. But João Pedro might have lost his place, so suddenly I'm sitting here with 3 or 4 problems in my team, with a lot on my plate to address. And I was hoping I'd have a relatively easier week, but doesn't exactly appear to be the case. So I have to assess my options closer to the deadline. I mean, Eze, if he's not fit, I think moving him on to a Bournemouth mid makes a lot of sense. Isak to Watkins is a probability. It's a possibility depending on if the opportunity presents itself. Luckily, if Trent is fit, I can afford to field Trent, Gabriel, and Mykolenko. I'm not exactly averse to fielding Mykolenko. I think fielding him is fine. Having Konza was great, but to be very honest, I didn't really expect much in the double anyway. I was expecting like 3 to 4 points, so it's fine. It's technically a loss of 2 points, so I'll probably take that on the chin. That's my thinking. It depends really. I'm currently not exactly 100% sure on which I decide to go, but I'm actually curious to hear your thoughts as well, Shani.
Yeah, nice. Sigurd, we'll get to your super chat. Thank you so much in just a second. We'll just stick on big man's dilemmas. I wonder, is there a way? There isn't a way you can get to Watkins and keep Isak, is there, with 3 moves? Like, Eze down to Bournemouth mid saves you 1.5 if it's Dango.
I have Gabriel, you don't, basically, right? I have money.
You'd need to sell an Mbermo, or you can't sell a Palmer or Salah. I mean, if Trent was injured, you could get to Watkins, Trent down to someone cheap, but Trent should be fine. I mean, I don't think João Pedro to Watkins is. You got to sell and die soon. You got to sell Konza soon.
I'm actually happy keeping Ndiaye. I'm happy keeping Ndiaye.
Because you're right to tackle.
He has that, because I'm not free hitting in 29. He's playing West Ham at home in that fixture, and I know he's not the most appealing of assets, but he's on pens and he's going to play at least. So I don't think he's I think there are bigger fires to put out in my team personally.
Yeah, good point.
As compared to Ndiaye.
Yeah. Oh, I'll tell you what, João Pedro.
Do you think as a Chelsea fan, do you think Colville gets back? Because he wasn't in the team last week. He had a horrendous header against West Ham. What are your thoughts on Colville?
Yeah, like he's Maresca loves him, and it was a dreadful pass back, but I'd fully expect him, if fit, to be starting football matches in the Premier League for Chelsea. Like, I know he's young, but he's almost a leader at the back for Chelsea. Like, we're an inexperienced team, and I think he's fairly vocal, and he's a bit of a leader in the team. So I think he's fine. The problem is Chelsea don't keep clean sheets, but against Southampton and then Leicester, those 2 games, Chelsea will have huge possession, and we will keep the ball, and we won't concede many chances in those 2 games. So you've got a chance of a clean sheet by those 2.
Yeah, I'm hoping I can nick a clean sheet out of those 2 fixtures, because I actually missed the Brighton Chelsea game at the weekend. I missed the Chelsea lineup, but I saw that Colville was rotated. So was the Chelsea team a very strong one and Colville was rotated, or was it like a relatively weakened team anyway?
No, there was rotation at the back, and I think it was just giving players minutes. But then you looked at the attacking lineup, and it was like a really exciting front 4. Like, he had Nkunku down the middle, and then he played the 3 of Neto, Sancho, and Palmer, and he benched Madueke. Now, Madueke's been a bit of a mainstay in the Premier League of late. So again, he came out and he's been playing all right. So I think it was just a bit of, Maresca does like to keep it fresh with players getting regular minutes. So if they go too long without a start, because they've had the the Europa Conference League, we've been able to put players in and be like, yeah, they're getting regular minutes, even though it's a nothing game. But for the last month or so, we've not had that. So I think the FA Cup was just an excuse to freshen it up a little bit. Even with the goalkeepers, we don't fully know if Sanchez comes back in. I expect Sancho's lost his place now, and Jorgensen keeps the number 1 spot. But yeah, Colwill has to come back in. Has to. It was a bad pass back for Jarrod Bowen goal, wasn't it? But again, that shows that was a game where Colwill and Chelsea should have kept a clean sheet. Like West Ham didn't do much, but then Jarrod Bowen picks up off an error, and it is those unforced errors that are Chelsea's downfall.
That's fair. So I mean, going by your analysis, Colwill isn't exactly a problem. So hopefully my defense will be in okay shape this week, and I can then decide what to do with Eze and Isak.
Yeah.
So Sigurd is asking who to bench, Wood, Isak, or Palmer. Definitely not Palmer. Who is Wood playing this week?
I honestly, I hate saying it, but I'd be benching Wood. You can't bench Isak against Man City.
Yeah, I don't think he's benchable as well. Who's Wood playing again?
Oh, is it Fulham away?
Yeah, it's Fulham away. Yeah, I think I'd bench Wood then.
Yeah. Good question.
I actually rate the Fulham defense at home.
Yeah, although Dean always said, I was willing to punt on Silva, assistant manager as well, like if they got the double. But yeah, Dean's never too hot on them at home in terms of winning games, but they never concede more than 1 or 2, do they?
Yanni, before we jump on to the listeners' questions, I have another question for you.
Yeah.
When we recorded last week and we were on the assistant manager chip, we discussed game week 26 as being one which would be relatively tricky for the chip. Game week 25 is straightforward given the way the doubles have panned out. Any early thoughts on who to go for in 26?
So if Ipswich and Spurs have a 5 gap in the Premier League table, which is possible by then, I think it's currently 4 or 5 places between Ipswich and Spurs. But again, obviously, it only matters where they are at the start of the game week. I don't mind McKenna at home as a punt. Like, I'm not going to have money in the bank to go for an Arteta, and I don't really want to be taking a hit. So I'm looking at it going, where can I get a bonus? And at the moment, Ipswich are 19th and Spurs are 14th. So that's an option. I don't want to go Van Nistelrooy against Brentford. If Wolves were playing at home...
You don't trust him enough?
I'd punt on Wolves, but Wolves are away at the Vitality, so I don't fancy that either. Sorry, mate, what did you say?
Yeah, I mean, I was asking whether you don't trust Rude against Brentford.
No. I prefer McKenna. And I prefer McKenna. I even prefer backing Wolves away at the Vitality. And I know that's weird because Bournemouth are so good at home, but in just hope that Bournemouth have an off day, because I do think Wolves are a team that can cause big teams problems. I think Wolves are actually quite underrated. I quite like them. And actually, when we talk about striker replacements, Cunha is on the radar.
I assume you're giving no thought to Arteta because you don't want to get a manager without the table bonus.
I just want the bonus. I mean, Pep is an option for bonus at home to Liverpool. My bonus chances then would have been Moyes versus Liverpool, Emery versus Liverpool, and Pep versus Liverpool. Literally, my bonus would have been backing against the best team in the world. So I don't know if also, Pep's 1.5 million, and I'm not going to have the money. I'm going to have 0.4 in the bank with Emery at 0.8. So I'll have 1.2 to spend on an assistant manager. And I think their prices the expensive ones are 1.5, 1.3, aren't they? So it's going to be a bit of a problem with the price point. Like someone like a Pereira at 0.8, is of course an option. There's no bankers though. Arsenal, West Ham should be a banker. I mean, Potter at 0.5, maybe. I don't know. I'm almost certainly going for a table bonus. What about you? What's your thinking?
I think it's going to be between Arteta and Root for me. I don't know. I can't bring myself to trust Root, so I might as well go with Arteta. But yeah, it's very boring.
You'll have the money though. The slot sellers. One, if you're on slot, you've probably shown your.
I think yes. I think I will. That's a good point. I will give some more thought to Pep actually.
Yeah. It's five at the minute, isn't it? Liverpool are top and Man City are 5th. And the chances of it being 5 are really high because Liverpool will be in first at the end of the game week. And And Man City, well, they need Chelsea to lose and they need to win. I think both those things happening are quite slim. I don't fancy Man City to beat Newcastle, and I probably fancy Chelsea to get something against Brighton. So, yeah, Man City should be 5 places below Liverpool. And in that case, again, it's the home team. it'd be backing against Liverpool 3 times on the road for my bonus. Let's see. Mate, I'm quietly confident that Emery or Moyes, one of them is getting something.
I think Emery
he's got a better chance. Actually. Better chance.
He's got a better chance. I can see an upset potentially over there, but hopefully tonight. I mean, I'm on slot, so I'm hoping that Liverpool get a decent win, 1-0 maybe, with no Salah involvement. That would be nice.
Yeah, give me a 0-0 draw. I'd take that. A draw would be lovely. I don't even care about the draw points for me. It's more that it's more just like I'd get the double Pickford and Mikalenko clean sheet and the Moyes 8 and the slot owners wouldn't get much. And the slot owners to get to slot have all sold a Liverpool defender who again would have kept it clean. So I'd quite like the 0-0 narrative. All I can say is FPL
realistically,
Twitter,
which way do you,
FPL Twitter is going to be a nasty place at 10 p.m. this evening. Just stay away from it.
Realistically, which way do you think that game is going to go?
Tight win for Liverpool, I'd say, but very tight. I do not see it being like a 2-3 goals. It'll be a 1-goal margin. Or could Everton nick the draw? Probably not, but you never know with Moisey. If it's 0-0 going in at half time, you never know. I cannot see an Everton win.
I hear you. It's a tricky one for sure.
Yeah, I just think Liverpool are too solid, and Liverpool players mostly had a rest. Like I know they lost to Bournemouth, but a lot of the players didn't even make the bench. Like players like Gakpo and Salah and Bradley didn't even travel, which was lovely. Like they got a full don't even come in the matchday squad. Everton went full strength and lost to Bournemouth at home 2-0. Everton actually looked quite bad. That's the worst team we've seen from Everton under Moyes. That FA Cup game against Bournemouth.
Yeah. Thoughts on Hall to Kirkes planning not to free hit in 29? I think this is fine. I think this is a good transfer. Bournemouth have a great run of fixtures. Do you think Kirkes is the pick of the Bournemouth defense, Shani?
I would go Munoz first, but I don't mind Kirkes. I think Munoz is better, but I like Kirkes too.
He's not free hitting in 29.
Oh, okay. So you don't want to buy a Palace player. Yeah. Okay, Kirkes is good. Yeah. Yeah. I think Hall is someone you can sell. I own Hall, and he's been really frustrating. I benched Daniel Munoz's 11 points to start Lewis Hall for his 1 the other day.
Nabadeep is asking, hey guys, I have one free transfer to one in the Elague to sell on priority basis. Gordon, Bruno, Wobby, and Ti. I think Gordon, probably, of the ones. Would you agree? I think you might go towards Bruno, no?
Bruno would be a sell before Gordon for me, yeah. I'd go Bruno first. Yeah.
I think I'd sell Gordon first.
Oh, good question. Great question. Forgot to address this. Havertz is out by the looks of it. Unconfirmed from the club, but sources suggest. Sterling and Trossard could both get minutes number 9. I'd expect it's going to be Trossard. Trossard has started the last 3, but on the left-hand side. It's going to be interesting to see what Arteta does with that front line. Wanyeri could be getting a lot of starts as well. Trossard, you could punt on him, do you reckon, big man? I mean, risky, but risky in terms of output, but not in terms of minutes.
It is tricky. Then again, I don't exactly know about the minutes. How would you expect the front 3 for Arsenal to be? Trossard, who's going to play in the other 2?
Wanyeri and Sterling. I mean, Martinelli's been
exactly.
Well.
I was going to say Wanyeri. Wanyeri at his price, maybe if he keeps
4.5. Wanyeri came on against Man City and scored that lovely goal. But yeah, can you really have a front 3 of Sterling? The thing is, you might call the minutes. You get Trossard, Sterling, Wanyeri right, and say Martinelli's injured. And you're like, oh, great, I've called the minutes. Is that team going to score many goals with that front 3? Even against bad teams in the league? I'm not sure they are. Like, Arteta's just going to go proper boring. You're going to see a lot of 1-0 wins and 0-0 draws. Like, you'll see a lot of clean sheets, even more clean sheets than before, because Arteta's just going to shut up shop. Oh, and the set piece threat, it's going to be all on set pieces for their goals. We're going to start to see long throws. He's probably got them doing long throw training at the moment.
Exactly. And what is tricky is that we don't exactly have enough time to assess how they're going to line up because their best fixtures are in the next 2 weeks against Leicester and West Ham.
You want
So
them
you need to
now?
actually you want them now. You don't have any time to assess. Adam is asking, bench one of Mateta or Mbomo. I don't think you can bench Mbomo personally. I think I'd probably bench Mateta.
Yeah, reluctantly it would be. There is some big benching headaches going around at the minute. Same last week. A lot of having to bench Chris Wood this week. Same, they had to bench Chris Wood last week. Double Bournemouth mids, one mid and one def. Definitely double mid. Like they're a fine defense, but they're a much better attack.
I agree. Rogers first, give me 25, and then Kluivert in 26. Thinking Bruno to Sebastian will beat. I personally don't like, booking too many transfers in to get Rogers and then sell him again. You might as well get the Bournemouth mid first.
Yeah. Cunha, mentioned him a minute ago. Cunha is definitely should be on the radar. What's your take on Cunha? Because under the new manager, he's not quite been the same. And actually, even I saw a benching or two, but we've seen 90 in the last 3 Premier League games. We saw him score versus Villa, scored in the FA Cup. The fixtures for Wolves in a couple of weeks really turn. So Liverpool and Bournemouth are tricky, but then it's Fulham at home, Everton at home, Southampton away, West Ham at home, Ipswich away, Spurs at home. It's a great run from like 27.
I can't say enough. I mean, under the new manager, he hasn't really looked great.
He hasn't looked as good. You're right. Oh, money no issue for Sokan. I mean, Watkins. If you're selling João Pedro, buy Watkins. That's what
Easy.
I'm doing. Yeah.
Bench Wissa or Ahmad?
Ahmad, just.
I agree.
I like Wissa.
I think I'd bench NDI of the two.
Yeah. Guys, awesome questions. Thank you so much. We're going to be back on Friday doing a bit of a deadline stream because we'll be doing an early deadline, but the deadline is Friday, which is good. The Game Week 24 has gone on for so long that a 25 deadline can't come soon enough. So make sure you're checking us out then. And to know we're live at any point, make sure you hit that notification bell. Whether you're subscribed or not, the notification bell is pretty important because we do different time slots and different days. Any final thoughts from you, big man, going into Friday?
Not yet. I'm hoping we get some further clarity in Watkins and Konza before the deadline, and then I can come back with a more concrete plan on what I plan to do with my team.
Yeah. Well, look, at 2:00 on Friday, when we go live, the vast majority of the press conferences are done. There might be 1 or 2 still to go. So we'll have all the information by then, which means for me and Big Man, who have got big decisions to make this week, like we're looking at 2-3 transfers each, we'll almost certainly know by Friday at 2 p.m. what we're doing. So make sure you come back on Friday and tune in to us then. Thank you for all your comments in the chat as always. Do hit those buttons on the way out. If you're watching on catch up, thank you guys as always. We still look forward to seeing your thoughts and stuff. So you can drop a comment if you fancy. And we'll see you again on Friday. See you later, team. Bye-bye.
Take care.